Seni punya nyawa. Seni punya kuasa. Seni mencetuskan perasaan yang tiada taranya. Seni merupakan pemacu negara. Seni menyatukan kita dalam meraikan dan menyalurkan tenaga kita ke haluan baharu. Pelaburan demi kesenian Malaysia adalah pelaburan demi jiwa kita. Seni mewakili sejarah terindah dan masa depan kita. Cendana mendorong kita ke hadapan. Dan dari sini, kita bangkit.
Hi everyone, good morning and welcome to the Cendana Open Arts classes brought to you by Cendana. My name is Sarah Ame and I'll be the moderator for this session. The Open Arts classes are a series of art classes under Cendana's Arts in the City program. The OAC features the country's renowned art practitioners to share with you their insights and expertise in their field. If you'd like to find out more about OAC and Arts in the City, do visit www.buskl.com.my/AITC. Now, before we begin, let's go through some house rules for the session today. Okay, so to ensure clear audio, we will mute the audio and video throughout the session, except for the question and answer session. We will be recording the session. Please share your questions in the chat box and the moderator will put forward your question during the Q&A session. Please respect all participants throughout the session and please introduce yourself in the chat box. We will greatly appreciate for everyone to fill in the survey survey for the feedback form. The link again will be given in the chat box at the end of the session. Please avoid using crass language, unconstructive feedback, or leaving spam comments. Failure to do so, the organizer reserves the right to exclude the attendee from participating in the session. So before we begin, a slight introduction on our instructor today, Paul Augustin. He is a man who wears many hats, all rooted within the love for music. He's an author, musician for over 3 decades before venturing into event management. Currently, he's serving as the Penang Heritage Project co-principal researcher and co-curator. Paul also co-published the book Just for the Love of It, Penang's popular music from the 1930s to the 1960s in 2015. And he went on to co-create the Penang House of Music together with James Lockhead. He also set up his own company with Chin Chu Yun called the Capricorn Connection. Under this company, the Penang Island Jazz Festival was born in 2004 and delighted music lovers near and far for over 14 years before ceasing operations in 2018. Also, another important point to note, Paul was also picked as the recipient for the 17th Bo Cameronian Arts Awards Game Changer in 2020, an honorable recognition given to individuals or organizations who have trailblazed the industry with their contributions. So now let's give a warm welcome. Hello, Paul. Good morning. Paul, you have to unmute your mic.
Okay, good morning. Good morning. Good morning.
Hello, how are you?
Hi, I'm okay.
Good to see you in high spirits. So before we begin our session, I would like to ask all our participants today to switch on their cameras. We're going to take a quick photo taking session with Paul today.
Okay, so, then I have to zoom in my...
Yeah. Okay. So feel free to do your own poses, everyone. Okay, in 3, 2, 1, smile. Second camera, smile. Okay, feel free to do your poses. Okay, last one. Awesome. Okay. Yeah. So I won't take your time any further, Paul.
Okay.
Okay, so good morning and welcome. Let's over to you.
Okay, very good morning to everyone from Penang, the island of Penang. For today's session, we're going to do it in two parts, I think. And the first part will be a recorded video on how we got started on our preservation journey. And the second part will be a presentation on the why and what we have in our current collection in Penang House of Music. And also I'd like to thank Chandana for having this session for us, for inviting me for this session. So without much further ado, Sarah, could you please share the recorded video? Thank you. I'm reading.
Greetings and a good morning to everyone wherever you are from Penang, Malaysia. I would like to start out with a quote by my granduncle, Mr. J.F. Augustin, and it's taken from a newspaper article which he wrote in 1970. Each old man who dies is a library lost. A quote which is somewhat similar to an old African proverb that says, when an old man dies, a library burns to the ground. In certain cases, I would agree that this might be true. But I would think in most cases it would not be a library, but a book. A book filled with stories that would be passed on through generations, through word of mouth, and possibly at storytelling sessions. These stories might sometimes then be converted into poetry, music, plays, dances, and other creative forms. In the world of music and the arts, every artist, be it a singer, musician, dancer, an actor, a poet, they are all storytellers. They tell stories through their art. Stories of hope, love, happiness, pain, stories of their dreams. And all of these stories have to be kept and documented as it is a window into the past. It is good to note that in recent times, the importance of the preservation of music and the arts is being acknowledged and appreciated, slowly but surely. It is gaining recognition and attention from the powers that be in this part of the world. But we are in a fight against time as we have come to realize that much of it has been lost, destroyed, or have been taken out of the country. Before proceeding further on the work we currently do at Penang House of Music, and what Penang House of Music is all about, I would like to take you on a trip back to the time we started on this unplanned and uncharted journey. Unplanned because we did not know that what we were doing then would lead us to what we are doing now. It all started with the Penang Island Jazz Festival, an event that our company, the Capricorn Connection, started in 2004. Looking back, I would say that it was during the festival that the seed of our preservation journey first began. It was when we introduced a competition called the Jimmy Ball Young Talent Jazz Competition during the festival. Now, Jimmy Ball was a Penang-born composer and a jazz pianist. He composed over 300 songs, and some of which are still being played till today. One of the stipulations in the rules and regulations section of the competition was that every participant had to play one of Jimmy Ball's compositions. And that was when we realized the younger musicians did not know who Jimmy Ball was, and also of his contribution to the music of Malaysia. And they, the younger generation, also did not know many of the older generation of musicians from Penang and Malaysia. So we slowly started compiling personality profiles of the older musicians and featured them in an exhibition in the Jazz Gallery during the festival. After some time, the Penang State Museum started to notice the personality profiles being displayed in the festival's gallery, and in the year 2010, they spoke to me on the possibility of putting on an exhibition at the State Museum itself, titled Penang's Popular Music of the 1940s and 1950s. I was told that we had 2 months and a small budget to work on it. So I spoke to James Lockett, who was my partner in the Penang Musical Heritage Project, and we decided that we would do it. The exhibition opened in December 2010 and ran for about 2 months, and it was very well received. In 2012, James and me were again approached to do a follow-up exhibition by the Penang State Museum and Think City, a government agency that focused on heritage matters of the country. And this time we were asked to include another decade to the exhibition, the 1960s. We had 11 rooms to fill. We said okay, but requested for a longer lead time to put it together, as we needed to do more research, as a number of the musicians of that period were still around, which was good, as we could then gather much more material, unlike the former exhibition where most of them had gone. The second exhibition was launched in 2013. And once again, it was very, very well received. Many of the older musicians and their families turned up, and there was a lot of laughter, a good time, and some tears were shed. The governor of Penang officiated the opening of the exhibition, and after having a tour of it, he mentioned that all the material in the exhibition should be made into a book. So Think City, the partner for the second exhibition, spoke to James and me about the book that the governor mentioned. Now, for James and me, a book and an exhibition are two very different things. An exhibition usually required mainly visuals and not much text. But a book, on the other hand, required a lot more work. We needed to do very much more in-depth research, structure it differently, and try and get all the information to be as accurate as possible. We were given about 10 months to put the book together. So we did many interviews, made many visits to the National Archives and media houses, drank lots of coffee, and had many sleepless nights. For the book, we decided that the period we wanted to focus on was between the 1930s to the end of the 1960s. And since it was a book about music, it had to have a CD. I would have to say we had a lot of fun working on the book. Everyone we interviewed for the book had a twinkle in their eye when they told us about stories of their musical past. On the title for the book, we decided it had to be Just for the Love of It, as the musicians of the time played music and had fun, just for the love of it. We also decided that the book had to have a design of that certain period, a sort of 1950s, 1960s look. And the designer of the book, Adrian Chia, did a great job of capturing the essence and atmosphere of that period in the book. The book was launched in 2015, and the reception was nothing short of amazing for us. It sold out within 2 months, and the publishers had to run a second print, which I am glad to announce had also sold out, and the book now is in its third print run. After the book was released, James Lockett and me were approached by the Chief Executive Officer of PBA, the Penang Water Authority, Dato' Jasni Maidinsa, who asked us what we were going to do with all the material we had collected while we were researching for the book. Because by that time we had thousands of photographs, newspaper articles, and recordings, etc. We told him that our intention for the collection was to place it in a small library or shop in the public area, making it easy for anybody who wanted information on music, culture, and arts of Penang to visit, and not to put it somewhere where access was limited and difficult to get to, as we felt that we, being of the older generation, already had such a tough time trying to find and collate all this information and material. So we could imagine it would be close to impossible for the younger generation to find anything on the history of Penang and Malaysia's music, if they wanted to, as they would not know where to start, where to go, and even who to talk to. And in time to come, a huge part of this heritage will be lost, and a lot of what will be written in the future of Malaysia's musical past will be based very much just on hearsay, with not much substantiated or justified facts. Sometime around the third quarter of 2015, we were shown a space of 6,800 square feet in Komta, a building right in the center of Georgetown, Penang, and we were asked to submit a proposal for the setting up of a Penang Music Museum, which we did. And in December 2015, we were informed that in principle, a grant would be allocated for us to do it. Work on the Music Museum actually only started in February 2016, after getting the letter of confirmation, and we had just about 10 months to brainstorm, formulate a concept, design, build, and open. Now, our first thought when taking on the project, and also due to time constraints, was to do what seemed to be the most logical thing to do nowadays: Google and copy. But we soon realized it was not that easy, as nothing like what we envisioned for our space existed, not in Malaysia, nor the surrounding region, or even internationally. We could not find what we were looking for. However, lucky for us, we had two main things going for us. One, the first thing was that Penang had a great story to tell. So we focused on that and used music as the main underlying narrative. And the second was the book we wrote. It had nearly everything we needed to tell the story. We just had to adopt a creative, modern way of presenting an old story by blending a bit of the old, artifacts and such, with modern technology and a number of interactive elements. The primary objectives for Penang House of Music was to focus on the past, recognizing and acknowledging the achievements and contributions of the older generation of musicians, the present, providing a space where the old and current group of musicians could gather and interact, that is to share, exchange ideas, experience, and also to support and promote their music and art, and the future, to hopefully inspire the younger generation through the many stories and achievements of the past generations. We also decided to have three main components for the space. One was the gallery, which tells the story of music, culture, and tradition in Penang from the early 20th century to 1970, transcending periods from the early migrants and the communities to the Second World War, post-war, the introduction of electric music instruments, and the various channels of marketing and promotion. The gallery acts as a gateway in introducing the visitor to the diverse musical and cultural traditions of Penang and Malaysia. Two was the Black Box, a 100-seater event space for performances, exhibitions, workshops, and forums. And last but definitely not least, the Resource Center, which is the heartbeat and nerve center of the Penang House of Music. It is here where the team finds, identifies, digitizes, and documents the music and all matters related to our music heritage. It is also where we house our library and archive. So after 10 months of working round the clock, Penang House of Music was launched and opened its doors to the public on November 16, 2016. At the start of our journey from the competition in the festival, our focus had always been about documenting and sharing of the stories of music and musicians of Penang and Malaysia. But when we began working on the research for the book, a sense of realization came about how big a part music actually played in everyone's lives. That started us looking at music on a much bigger scale. We looked at everything and anything related and revolving around music. It was a lifestyle and was reflected in the many things we do and see around us. The power and effect of music and musicians was everywhere. It influenced fashion, hairstyles, dance, is used in advertising, promotions, and social activities. It plays a huge role in promoting patriotism and is also a motivational and propaganda tool. It influences the way that people walk, talk, and even think. Though our main focus is in the documenting of music per se, we cannot ignore the many other parts that music played in affecting lives and the many changes that it brought or made to different periods of time. And so our preservation work took on a broader view. Not only did we collect music in different audio formats like vinyl records, cassettes, CDs, reels, and just photographs of musicians. We widened the search for our collection to include entertainment books, magazines, posters, program books, newspaper articles, radio request cards, radios, musical instruments, score sheets, and more. And the bigger our collection grew, the more we began to discover and understand the influence, the evolution and movement of music and musicians of the early years in this part of the world. We are still fairly new in this area, and I somehow feel that we have always been in a rush, judging by our timelines. Getting from where we were less than 10 years ago to where we are now. But I'm glad to say that we know very much more now than we did before. And man, it has been, and still is, an exciting journey. Though we started working on the Penang Musical Heritage Project about 10 years ago, actual preservation work only really began about 4 years ago. And in 4 years, our collection has grown substantially. We probably now have one of the largest collections on Malaysian music-related items and material. We have thousands of records and recordings, and have discovered some real gems. Amongst some of our most prized discoveries are a number of regional 78 RPM vinyl records, one of which is a 1903 record with the song Lagu Selamat, one of the earliest known recordings done in this part of the world. And we also have a few yellow HMV labels which we have never seen before. We have over 100 radio request postcards from the 1950s to the 1970s in 4 different languages: Malay, English, Chinese, and Indian. A good collection of early Radio Malaysian vinyl records. We also have hundreds of local entertainment magazines and songbooks in different languages. And we have a few thousand image scans of musicians, personalities, performances, and events. Every little thing related to music is a piece of treasure for us, as we attempt to discover its connection to the story of music of a time. It is a never-ending journey, and with every turn we take, we feel like it's just a start into another rabbit hole to explore. Though our initial focus was Penang, but over time, it has expanded to cover the nation and region. In the early to mid-19th century, the musical connection between Malaysia, Singapore, Indonesia, and the Philippines was very strong. This was known as the Nusantara region. Borders at that time were practically non-existent, and musicians tended to go wherever they needed to go in search of the proverbial pot of gold, and this in turn helped the musicians to hone their skills and also to musically grow. Due to our extensive diverse collection, we have attracted not only music researchers and historians, but also researchers in anthropology, visual designs, photography, sociology, and even heritage buildings. We try to assist the researchers in any way we can, either by providing whatever material or information we have that they need, And if we do not have what they are looking for, we will try to connect them with the people who do. As we continue on our journey, we try to understand not only the music, but also the musician, the audience, and the time. The sum of things that surround and revolve around music. Preservation for us is not just about collecting and having a piece of history in our hands, but more importantly to try and identify and know what it is. What does it represent? How did it come by? We have so many questions when we find something, as there is actually not much information available. But fortunately, in the past couple of years, we have worked with researchers, and through their work, we ourselves are beginning to understand things a little better. In the past 1.5 years, during the period of the pandemic, we had to shut down Penang House of Music. We had to readjust and refocus. Our gallery was closed to visitors, but we used the space to record and did some online streaming for events and performances.
In San Francisco, high on
We started working with the content of our collection by producing mini research documentaries on local personalities like Ahmad Marikan and Jimmy Boyle. We also collaborated with other producers on projects such as The History of the Alley Cats, a popular Malaysian group from the 1970s, and Potehi, a traditional cultural form of glove puppet theatre.
來來來來來，跳水啦！你要見端啦！
In closing, I would like to say that there is never enough importance placed on intangible heritage. It is only when things begin to get lost, then and only then will people take notice and try to save and preserve it. Now, the difference between tangible and intangible heritage for me is that buildings can be destroyed and restored. Lives cannot. Houses can be torn down and rebuilt. Homes cannot. Recordings can stand the test of time. The reason why, where, and how it was recorded, and the people who recorded it will not. Documenting stories of how and why recordings were done for posterity and future generations are just as important as the recording itself.
Biar putih tulang jangan putih mata.
So the song that was just played is actually a song taken from the RTM archives in 1974. A song called Airy, composed by Dato' Johari Saleh. And now I would like to go into the second part of the presentation, where I present the slides. If you can you see the slides? Goes on? Okay. Music and the arts, consciously or subconsciously, is very much a part of our lives. Interwoven into our culture in many ways. It brings people together and creates a sense of belonging. It is ever present, usually during festivals, celebrations, social and significant events, rituals, etc. In this session, I would like to share my experience on the two exciting projects that got us started in the preservation of music history. Firstly, the book Just for the Love of It, and then next, the gallery. Both of this, I would have to say that it was not planned at all. And it started initially on just Penang, but over time, our collection just grew and evolved to include Malaysia and also part of the surrounding region. So firstly, briefly on the book entitled Just for the Love of It. James Lockett and I realized, though the subject was on the history of music in Penang, it was more than just music that we had to include in telling the story. To make it interesting and to give it a soul, we had to ask the right questions from the right people to understand the why, when, what, and how to tell the story. We had a great time doing the research, the writing, and the designing of the book. And what we discovered was that the more information we gathered, the more questions we had. Secondly, the book then led us to the building of a house, the Penang House of Music. And it had to be a place that we had to build that had to be not only interesting, but also educational in terms of awareness on the importance of intangible heritage of music and the arts in Penang and Malaysia. So when designing the Penang House of Music, we look at three main areas. One, the black box, where music, culture, and arts continue to live. Oh, sorry. I think we went off to the other side. Okay. And next was the resource center. We stored the stories of music and the arts of Penang and Malaysia. And for the gallery, we employed the strategy of including the history of Penang into it. We realized that in order, hang on, the slides keep going away, sorry. We realized that in order to try and understand where we are now and where we're headed, we had to look back. So we started with the fact that Penang was a major port, a sort of a gateway into this part of the world. It attracted many people from all over the world. Some came seeking fortune, fame, a better life, or running away from something. And they came bringing with them their cultures, the traditions, their languages, and also the music. Over time, with the influx of people coming from all over the world, it led to a number of communal areas being formed. And through time, these communal areas grew organically and was reflected in the names of the streets of the town. As an example, as a child growing up in India or China, you would only be exposed to Indian and Chinese music. But in Penang, the people, after returning from work in the evenings, would have dinner. And after dinner, they would sit around and gather and tell stories of a land where they came from, or sing songs from where they came from. So as a person walking through the streets, then you sort of realize that you're listening to many, many other types of music that you will never ever get or be exposed to. And this would then, create something that is very special to this thing. That is called Malaysia. A combination of many languages and songs from all over the world that came into our country. And we have to be proud of it, because in diversity there is strength. And we created all these things by adopting whatever came into our country, and we localized it the Malaysian way. For example, it was the Boria, which came from Persia. Then we also had Dondang Sayang. And we embraced also the other types of people and music that came into our country. The Chinese music and performing arts, the Indian and music and performing arts, amongst others. We began our preservation exercise only about 6 years ago, but we moved really fast on this. And since then, our collection has grown quite substantially. We collect everything and anything that could help us to connect dots and to tell a story on our music history and heritage. This included radios, musical instruments, vinyl records, old quarter-inch reels, and this helps if there's information on the boxes and the covers of the reels. So they are quite good. Some of them, they actually wrote down some of these things, but some did not have anything, so we're just left to figure out what's inside them. We have a growing number of old 78 RPM shellac records. And here we would like to play a couple of them for you. The first one is entitled Lagu Selamat, which we found, and after checking with Professor Tan Swee Beng, who has done much research in the field of 78 RPMs in this region, we discovered that this vinyl was one of the first recordings done in this part of the world by Fred Geisberg and George Dilnut. And we would like to play that for you now, but please bear in mind that the recording is over 100 years old, and the sound is not fantastic, but here we go.
Ibu selamat untuk Kusura Gauskan Akan Ketua Kampung Augustin Penerapan Kawan Manager Haji Ibrahim.
Yeah, that was Lagu Selamat. The sound's not very good, but you can understand why. It's over 100 years old. We are just glad to have found a physical copy of this recording for our archives. The next one is a 78 RPM record also, which is a 1956 recording. It is a popular song originally done for a movie, but this particular recording was by Zainal Alam. And it's very unique as he sings it in 4 different languages. The title of this is called Rose, Rose, I Love You. Have a listen.
Standing on the jetty as the steamer moves away, flower of Malaya, I cannot stay. Make way, oh make way for my eastern rose. Men crowd in dozens everywhere she goes. in her trash or on a street or in a cabaret. Please make way for Rose, you can hear them say, tidak boleh ku lupamu, senyum kamu yang manis menawan kalbu. Xin tơ sơ ye, xin tơ ching ye, sang cheri quang hoi chao ta ti. Mei kui, xin er qian, mei kui, se qian. Lai re peng ye, lai choi chan, mei kui, wo ai ni. Rose incarnate, adeka kavale, yenna nadakmo, ipo periyanname, kappal pogiradu nanum poyigeren, sellamme yenkannem poittu varen.
Yes, that was Rose Rose, I Love You. And 4 languages in English, Chinese, Malay, and Indian. It's actually very interesting. And the sound is much better. It's not 100 years old, so it's only about 60 years old. So we were lucky. We also have a sizable record collection of 1233 RPMs and 7-inch 45 RPMs, and which included some early Radio Malaysian recordings from Orkes RTM, and also records of popular Malaysian artists. We also have a growing collection of P. Ramlee records and books, and a sorted number of local 7-inch 45 RPM records. Our collection also includes scans of a number of old photographs of musicians and performers from 1940s, 50s, 70s on to 80s, and so on and so forth. This particular photo was actually taken when RTM first came to broadcast it in the northern part of Malaysia. The story was that there is a story behind this. There was when they wanted to broadcast in northern part of Malaysia. Ahmad Marikan at that time, Tan Sri Ahmad Marikan, came back to Penang and said, asked Joe Rosell, say, hey, put a band together, and he gathered all his people together. And this photo is unique, if you look at the camera and the people dressed up, and if you can notice the pineapple that sits just in front of the camera. One of the interesting aspects in our collection is of some photographs and documentation of Penang's municipal band from the mid-1900s, which actually has a very interesting story. We're trying to compile as much as we can for all these things so that we can continue to research and find out what happened, how it happened, and why it happened by itself. Next up is our radio and movie theaters were main channels for music promotions. And so we have also included a nice collection of Radio Malaysia request cards. People used to buy request cards and then send it to radios and radio stations and ask them to play certain songs for friends and families. And we have it in 4 languages: English, Malay, Chinese, and Indian as well. And also we have old movie promotional photographs and locally produced songbooks. There is also a sizable collection of movie magazines in 4 languages and other assorted magazines and program books. And a very interesting variety of promotional posters and flyers for films, concerts, events, amusement parks. Old Malaysian songbooks, some of which were printed by Radio Television Malaysia for schools. An interesting thing to note is that Radio Malaysia used to run a radio pendidikan program during the 1960s and 70s. And besides what you have seen in the slides, we have quite a bit more in our collection. It might be a little bit too much to absorb in just one session. For us, it is very important to note that it is not only about collecting documents and materials, but one would also try to know and understand what it is. Every little thing that we have, everything that we collect tells a story. It is a window into our past, and we will need to try and know the importance and significance of it in relation to our music history and heritage. Every time we collect something, we get excited. Presently, a lot of our work revolves around the digitizing and documenting of the collection for our library and archives. It takes up a lot of time because a lot of it you cannot just like say copy and paste, you know, it has to be in real time. So records, you have to listen to the records in full, and then the cassettes. We have thousands of cassettes, thousands of records, and also CDs that we're trying to archive as much as we can. It is our hope that we get to document all this before it is lost. In closing, I would like to reiterate that the intangible heritage of music and arts to a nation is very, very important for posterity, for our future generations. We have to look back to see where we came from to move forward. And as the saying goes, a nation without its music, culture, and arts is like a nation without a soul. And I would like to now finish my presentation of the slides with a song written by David Ng. Now, David Ng was a jazz piano player from Penang. He left for London in 1954. And he recorded this particular song with a band called the Four Saints in the early 1960s in Italy. The song is titled Selamat Malam.
Selamat malam means good night to you. Folks in Malaya say this lovely phrase. Selamat malam 'neath Malayan skies, and to the loved ones when they say good night. That old moon up above seems to know that our love like the
And so that ends my part of the second part of my presentation.
Thank you so much, Paul, for such an amazing sharing. I think I speak on behalf of everybody today that we're just mind blown and so appreciative by all the work you and your team have been doing in preserving our music history. So I'd like to also open the floor up now to questions to all our participants. Please feel free to raise your hand or enter your question into the chat box. I will call out your name by order, and you can unmute your mic and your camera to ask your question directly to Paul. But I myself have some questions before we start. First and foremost, I understand now that you guys are reopening. The museum is reopening, but not as you normally would be open, because it's a very interactive museum. You can tell us a bit about how the new operations of the House of Music will be?
We have actually opened now already, but not to the public. We have started to come in to work. We continue documenting, digitizing, and also we're doing a recording of Potehi here. But we cannot open yet because when we came in after months staying at home, we found out that a couple of the places at the back of the office, there's a leak in the building. So we have to repair that as well. And also in the music, our broadcasting room here, there's a slight leak there. So we intended to open this week, but because of that, we could not. So we hope to just get that done, and then we will start opening to the public. However, it will only be 3 days a week for the time being, because we have to follow the SOP, and we have to sanitize everything. And the collection that we have, it's dangerous. If you sanitize everything, then it will all just either be spoiled or what. Too much cleaning is not good as well.
True.
So
they're very fragile items, I'm sure.
Yeah, we have a lot of fragile because our place, it's very interactive. There are instruments that are here, and when we have instruments, we let people touch the instruments and play with instruments. There's a recording studio where you can record yourself as a DJ, and then you also have the VR room, the virtual reality place, and then many other things. You can play records here. You get the experience of playing a record. For I think the younger generation is like, wow. They see a record and they say, wow, that's a big CD, man.
So, okay, we actually have one question now coming in from Iz. How does Uncle Paul sustain Penang House of Music?
I like that. People keep calling me Uncle Paul, so after a while I just continue letting them do that. Okay, when we first started it, then we were funded by PBA, which is actually the water department. And eventually, we're now being funded by PTAs, actually, Penang Tourism, Arts, and Creative Economy, under the Penang State Government. So they are helping us to stay alive, and it's quite impossible because we cannot make any money yet now. So that's how we stay alive. Through funding. If not for funding or grants, we will not be able to exist. And it would be a shame if we were to close, because then we would have to sell everything or just give up, and it's going to be really difficult to get it back altogether. It was very hard for us to find all these things, very, very hard. And we've got things that were given to us, like old photographs from as far as Norway. People have been sending us things, and Italy. People say, hey, and then now we're in touch with some people in Australia, and they say, there's a research on certain things that you can look at, and they give us context on people who to talk to, where to get stuff. So we have sort of like established ourselves as a center for people to dump things. And it was very good. Actually, during the MCO, one good thing that came out of it was people stay at home. So when people stay at home, they start cleaning their houses. And I discovered, wow, I've got this and I've got that, and I wonder if Penang House of Music wants this or not. So they started giving us things, we had old radios, old typewriters, it was good because we can show people how things were done before. So we've collected a lot more stuff actually during the MCO.
And it's not just, I think in the industry of music back then, it also entails not just the recording, but also even the layout of how graphic design was made.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
if you look at the posters from the early 50s, 60s, and even the record covers, it was like people discovering this type of typeface, or a certain font, and they just get excited, so they throw everything inside. And when you look at the poster, it is actually very hard to read, but to them artistically, it's like, okay, we do this here, we put this there, and then we put this picture here, and then this italic here, and then we put plenty things. But in the end, it does not make any sense. So if as a designer, it's really, really interesting to see that what happened in those days. Now you just cut and paste, and then you have to standardize your font, because if not, people cannot read. That time was like party time, man. I get to do a poster. I'm going to throw everything plus the kitchen sink inside, lah.
I think we from the interactions we have in the chat today, I think a lot of people also want to know how was the energy back then, growing up, and you were part of the music scene as well. So
Yeah.
maybe you can just kind of give us a bit of a gist of the whole energy of what the nightlife and the music was back then.
Yeah, it will never be the same again, I guess, especially with the MCO and all that. But I would say that I'm glad to have lived this part of time. I grew up when I saw my first television in black and white. It was in a neighbor's house. I had to peep over the window and look at it and say, wow, this box got pictures coming out of it, you see? And the music scene, I grew up not playing music till the mid-70s. But in the early 60s and all that, I used to follow bands because my cousin used to play in the band. So, I was what you call a plug sticker. So, they would carry instruments, set things up, and then, Paul, plug in the thing. So I'm a plug sticker. So I plug it in. And I was about 14 years old when I first went to my first nightclub, and walk in. I had slippers on and short pants, you're not allowed to go in, but because I knew the band, so the band brought me in, and I sat down and watched the scene, and all people were singing and dancing, and the bands were playing, and wow, it was so exciting for a 14-year-old guy, you see. And the music then was more of like, I think it was not so much of protest or doing anything. It was much more of having fun and getting paid for it. I started playing my first gig when I was in Form 3, Form 4. And we would play. I joined the band, and the band suddenly said, "Okay, we're doing a gig," and then you go and play a gig, and then finish the gig. We're going back. He gives me $10, and I was like, "Wow, I had fun and I get paid for it. Wow, this is cool, man. I like doing this, And this continued. It was not because of the money. It was just because you enjoyed doing what you did and playing music, And yeah, just for the love of it, And when we were interviewing people for the book, and I remember one person, I think it was Greg. We call him Achai. He's a very good guitar player. He's now repairs guitars and all that. And I asked him, I said, Greg, how was it in the 60s when you were playing music? He said, man, everywhere, there was music everywhere. My neighbor was building guitars. Another one on this side was building amplifiers. And it was like, it's a sin if you don't play music because it was all around. And please bear in mind that time, you did not have much competition in terms of entertainment. You had the movie industry, television was just starting, the radio. So, what do? Play music lah. Play music, And then most of the bands also, what they did was they organized their own events. You are a band. So you book a hall, you buy the drinks, you sell the tickets, and then you played and then you made money. That's how innovative they had, ideas that came out of it. And then we had concerts.
Yeah.
Interestingly, the energy about 1960s and 70s, local bands used to have concerts and they would be sold out. Local musicians, local artists would play and it was packed, So the energy for music at that time was actually very, very interesting.
Okay, I'm going to stop you there and move on to the next question. We have quite a long question from Reza Saleh. Do you want to turn on your mic and your camera, Reza, to ask the question directly to Paul? Hello, morning.
Hi, Reza. Where are you?
Hi, Paul.
Hi, Reza.
Sorry, I couldn't unmute just now. Thanks for the session. I just have, I think, two questions wanted to ask you. First of all, sorry if this was covered earlier. I came in just slightly a bit late. Just wanted to ask, as much time as it takes to kind of filter and collect the past, which is quite a monumental effort, do you guys have any steps in terms of archiving the present, just to ensure that that I guess documentation and archiving of music history doesn't stop lah? Or is the focus for now, in the past?
Okay, that's the first question, right, Reza?
Yeah.
We actually would like to do that, but we can't be everywhere. You see, so those that have done CDs or recordings, we've asked them to please give us a copy of it. But on our side, because of our black box, we manage to sometimes hold events and also workshops and everything. And everything that we do in Penang House of Music since we opened, we record. We archive, record, So maybe we've not cleaned it up yet because that entails a lot more people working for us and getting things done, And we need maybe a bit of expertise to maybe edit it to be more concise. So now at the present moment, we just collect anything that everybody, if you've done a recording, you pass it to us, we'll put it in and we'll just archive it for the time being. So because I know that a lot of musicians, they never think about archiving. They just want to play, have fun. And then when they release a record at the time, we say, hey, what was your idea of how the song became to be written in this way? I don't know. And how did you go to the recording? I don't know. How much did you pay for your session? I don't know. And then because it was the end goal, just getting there was important to them. The process of going from here to there, it's okay, I'm already there. You see, so I always tell musicians that please try and document your journey. Because when you look back, you wrote your first song and then after that, you release your first record and you look back and say, oh my God, what did I write? But the ideas that came, that was where you started. You need to see where you started before you can realize that, okay, you're improving. So we encourage people to pass things to us that we can at least document all these things.
That's interesting. I think okay. I think that's kind of in a way what I expected, because it does take a lot of work, but it's good to know that on the most basic level, just collecting, and I didn't know that you guys recorded sessions. I think that's quite valuable also lah. It's a bit funny as you were talking about the question, it just flashed in my mind. Maybe with each submission, you could have some kind of form with 5 questions. One of them could be how much you spent on it, like basic questions that they could just submit that info, and you'd have it lah, without it requiring too much effort from parties. I think that's interesting. It's all these small details that people kind of forget. My next question is, I guess, more personal to you. I think you've had quite a lot of interactions with musicians from different generations, especially when you were organizing your festivals and such. Just wondering, do you find or observe any differences between, say, musicians now or like in the past 10 years versus musicians when you were growing up, or are musicians all the same no matter what era they're in? Any insight?
Okay, this is a personal observation. I think it's a very sensitive thing as well. You see, because in the early days when we were growing up, we did not have any schools, of music. Maybe only classical. You learn piano, classical. You were classically trained or traditional instruments. But the pop musicians, the working musicians, did not have any schools. And you had to learn the hard way. At that time, during our time when we played music, it was no matter who you are, what you are. So long as you could play, you could fit into the band, hey, let's call this guy, he's good. It did not matter what race, what religion you were. If we could make music together, that was it, I think maybe through years we have been segregating things and all that, and that's quite sad, But nowadays, through the experience of watching musicians, is that these people, the sad part is that these people now playing did not have what we had. It was a transition. You play music, and then there were older musicians. You went to see the older musicians, you learn from them, and then you go on. But I think when disco kicked in, all the bands died. you know, and then you had five-piece bands, six-piece bands suddenly getting no jobs, and the drummer now playing keyboard in a hotel or something like that. And so these younger musicians did not have local heroes. They had international heroes. I grew up at the time when I was like, wow, Uncle Larry is playing guitar. He's sitting at the bar, and I'm so scared to play because if I play anything wrong, I will get scolding from him, you know? But the young guys did not have. So when they start learning, they go into school and they learn, they think that, oh, this is fantastic, I'm good. But I cannot blame them because there is no yardstick for them to measure their skills compared to the ones before, you know? And they have become very technical in the sense that, you know, oh, I can play 100 notes a minute. But, and this translates to me is that, yes, you are good. You can play very good, technically. And you talk a lot through your music, but I don't know what you're saying. And because of this type of education, you lose the feel and the soul of the music. You know, in the olden days, ours is like, hey man, I can't feel you. I can't feel you, you know. Hey, feel. You got to have the feel. Here is now like, hey, you play properly the chords and all that, you know, but very artificial. So the soul is lost. That's what I feel, you know. And I've spoken to a couple of other musicians and they agree that, you know, yes, you know, as a bass, I was a bass player at one time. And then I always we tell the bass player, you don't have the shrub, man. You know, you must have that pull the shrub that comes. And that is lost. So,
Okay, Rita, since we have you here,
oh my God.
thanks for your answer, Paul. We actually have an interesting question from Hassan that actually relates to, so everybody knows, Reza is also the sector manager for independent music under Cendana. Can we have Hassan? Or else I'll just read out the question first. Oops, okay. Hi, Hassan. Hello, hello.
Hey, hi guys.
Hi, Hassan.
Hi. Yeah, I mean, yeah, if you guys can see the questions, right. So I was wondering, like, what's the today's education on like in our primary school right now? So back then in my time, like I just like learning a record, like playing recorder of Titanic songs that time. Oh, I'm not sure about other schools, but just sharing like my experience during my primary school time. So I wonder, like, I think everyone here like watch, you know, School of Rock. You know, they introduce like history to the students, like, I mean, the early history of music, everything. So I was wonder, like, I mean, we have right now Cendana as a, I mean, empower arts body in Malaysia, right? So to suggest to the school whether to putting like, you know, subjects, I mean, syllabus about our local music history. Like maybe kids right now can, I mean, kids can learn like who's the composer father, like, you know, not really heavy subjects, maybe like very simple, like, you know, top 10 fathers of music, top 10 musicians, top 10 dancers, or I mean anything related for the syllabus in school. I mean, we can put it for primary school. Yeah, I mean, yeah, just my thoughts. Yeah, any views from you guys? Yeah, I mean, since we got Penang House of Music archive and all the huge collection, right? So I'm not sure whether Cendana can collaborate with Penang House of Music to do something. Yeah, just suggestions.
That's great. That's great. Can I give you an answer, Hassan? I was asked to sit on the panel a few years back for one university. And it was like the end of the year where the teachers gather and then they present to the people in the industry and speak to them and says, you know, what our students are learning and all that, is it applicable to the outside world? And one of my questions I asked them is that, what kind of history do you teach in terms of music? And they say, oh, Western music, classical, jazz and all that. I say, what about local music? Nobody's doing that. You know, and actually it's a very, very interesting history that we have. You know, but it has not been done into a syllabus, which I would love to do. If I had somebody that I could work with, we could collaborate and maybe pilot it in one of the universities starting first and all that. But I think a lot of emphasis is not placed on that at the moment in education. And in the early days, yes, they had music in schools, but after that there was loss. And it's very, very sad because a lot of these kids, when you grow up, I'm sure that you all have gone to universities and overseas and all that, and I'm sure that there is a Malaysian night, and when there's a Malaysian night, they will say, okay, all the students from Malaysia, can you all please put up a program? And the chances are you would do a bit of joget and sing Rasa Sayang or something like that. And then the people ask you about what is your culture or what is your music culture or the arts in Malaysia, and chances are you maybe know 2%. You don't know anything else. So people look at you and say, oh, Malaysian, they all dance joget and they sing Rasa Sayang. That's about it, because you do not place a lot of emphasis on this. And our culture is so strong and so vibrant, and so diverse, and makes us so special. But I don't know, maybe Chandana wants to do something about it. We are willing to help. It will keep us alive. It will keep us alive.
Okay. Well, okay. I think this goes into the realm of arts education, which actually, technically in Chandana is a different department. I don't know if Jyoti is here, but I can say that I think for some, especially for me, as I'm a practitioner as well, working with Chandana, one thing we learn about is there are a lot of mechanics involved when it comes to doing this sort of thing, especially when you deal with things like the education system, right? I mean, we can say in one sentence what our hopes and dreams are, but this one sentence needs to be translated in a lot of different kind of steps and moves and strategies to be able to get there. I know currently under Chandana, in terms of the good work that our arts education department does, it is, we do things like bringing school kids to arts venues, not just music, actually busing them to different venues. We have programs where we open up to receive applications from local practitioners, be it music or other art forms, for them to train them and to actually bring them into schools to teach. Now, I think this opens a few different things, like number one, opening up our pool of arts practitioners, termasuk musicians, to actually connect with school kids, to actually have that opportunity to teach beyond perhaps whatever we have in the syllabus, just to expand it, and I think that's an important first step. For me, I think, as Paul knows also, I also used to organize a lot of shows. I really believe in small steps leading to bigger things, sikit-sikit lama-lama jadi bukit kind of thing, especially in Malaysia, because sometimes when you booms, want to do something, want to present something, people scared, cannot. So you have to kind of slowly but surely get there. So I think some of the programs we've done so far are really good steps in that direction. But it is more, in a way, oriented towards the craft itself, how to do this, how to learn this. In terms of music history itself, we haven't touched yet, I think. I'd be really interested to see, maybe not primary school, tapi in tertiary education institutes, like what do they teach? Do they already at that level, do they go into it, So I think definitely it's unfortunately, when it comes to history, for some reason, it's the last thing that we look at.
Yeah.
And in a way, it's kind of consistent with the country as a whole. We kind of buat dulu, and the talking part is kind of later sometimes. So I hopefully I think we will get there. But it's connected to so many things. I mean, why would people care about history? We care about history more when they care about music more. And caring about music more is such a multi-layered thing. It's about appreciation on all levels, going to shows, consuming shows. You know, when we reach a point where people are queuing up to go to a house of music, then we can see, you know, right now, even at normal gigs also, it's hard to kind of get that tangible scene. So yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm glad this conversation is, you know, it can be a Kickstarter for things moving forward. Thank you, Reza and Hassan, for the question. We really appreciate a representative from Cendana also giving in your input.
Can I just say something in connection,
sure.
just short on it? Because the thing is that this is actually what got us started, actually the history of music. When we did Jimmy Ball, nobody knew who Jimmy Ball was. The young people. You know, and we got people coming here and say, oh, P. Ramlee from Penang, Malaysia. I thought it was Singapore. Elikes from Penang. Oh, I thought they were Singapore. So if we don't do anything, means habis. You know, everything will go to Singapore. You know, our food and our arts and our culture and everything. So I think that's it's a very important and relevant question. You know, we must look at perhaps. Maybe Reza and I can have a sideline after that, you know, we can talk about it. Okay.
Beauty of these classes is just to start the conversation. So thank you again, Reza and Hassan. Okay, moving on, we have next question from Anne-Marie. Hi.
Hello.
Hi, Auntie. Good morning.
Yes, Uncle Paul. This is Auntie Anne-Marie. And my question is, there's just so many things. How do you know what to document? Say for a musician today, right? You're taking like 200, 300 photos in your Instagram account, in your Facebook. What's important? What should musicians today be actually documenting? Like I look at your slides just now, right? The music books that you had. I remember having some of those books as a child, but who knew to keep them, you know? So what do you keep? What are the important things that one needs to document and keep?
Actually, I'm a hoarder, and the guys know it, you know. So everything I will keep, but then I will pick up those that, you know, look better and then place them in somewhere else. But the others you don't throw away. That's what I always do, because now I know much more than I knew then. So when as years go by, you suddenly realize, oh wow, I have that photo, and now I understand why that photo was taken. And then if you can look at something, and then you go back to it, and then you start moving forward, but you keep going back and you're lucky because you have that thing. If you don't have that thing, then it's gone. So for me personally, keep everything, keep everything. Keep everything somewhere, like, you know, don't go and, you know, do anything with it, and maybe after that you try and say, okay, this one not so nice. I think most of the musicians or whatever, you keep nice photos of yourself. The ugly one, or you don't let people see, you know. And like you said, the books and all that did not have any meaning. Or even the song that we played just now, the 1903 song, Lagu Selamat, is more than 100 years old. To a normal person on the street, he takes this one. This is a record batu. Number one is that it's how am I going to play it? I don't have a player. So it makes no sense to me. You know, why should I keep this thing? You know, I have no connection with it. I don't know what it is. I can't hear what is it. You know, and then they give it this one. But to us, when we got that record, it was like, wow. You know, 1903, one of the first recordings in this part of the world. And when we spoke to Professor Tan Swee on this, and then says, you know, she checked because she's got this catalog things that she does and all that. And she said, wow, that's 1903. Where did you get it? Like, you know, it's so hard to get this kind of things. But I'm sure that people have it. It's only that they don't recognize it or they don't know what it is. So if you have something and you give it to us and we say, okay, we can tell you a story with this, you know, and you put it to us, whether it be a poster, and then you look for the things that you can tell stories, and then you look at it in this place, that place, the dates, the fonts that are being used, the color that is being done, you know, the drawing that is put there, and the song that comes. Everything tells a story, and then, you know, so it's like unboxing a whole lot of treasures for us, like, you know. So my advice would be keep
like
every.
almost like piecing a puzzle together.
Yeah. You know, it is exactly. And then my advice would be keep everything. Document your journey, and then as you grow older, you tell, okay, this one I don't need to tell people. That one I don't need to tell people. Just keep the rest. You know?
Okay.
Thank
So I hope
Thank
that
you
you.
answers the
for your
question.
question. I hope that answers your question. Okay, I'm going to move on that note. The next question we have from Wendy. Do you see any future collaboration with governing bodies such as Arkib Negara in sharing your archiving resources?
Okay, that is a very interesting question. You know, okay, I'll answer it as diplomatically as I can, and basically, if somebody deemed that this was important, they would have done it long before we did. You know, so it's only when we started doing that people realize the difference between what we do and the people who do it to maybe other institutions or other places that do it is that the passion is there. The passion in wanting to know, wanting to keep, wanting. It is not a 9 to 5 job. So all the people who work with us, we don't have a big team. We have a very small team. All of them they get excited if I bring something. I brought a typewriter in the other day, a normal manual typewriter. And the younger ones are like, wow, what is this, you know? To show that how things were done. The passion and the enthusiasm that comes with it. When we discover a recording of something that was recorded in a hotel ballroom, and then say, wow, we got this. That is the difference. We do not like clock in 9 o'clock. Okay, it's a job. Where you work? I work in Penang House of Music. 5 o'clock, I go home. You know, they carry their work with them. A lot of them, you know, and they're always forever looking out at things. So their perception of things itself is very different. The way they look at things is very different. Hopefully, we would be able to collaborate with all these institutions because, to be fair, they got the money, we don't, and we need money, we need expertise, we need people who are passionate about this, we need people who know to help and work with us. You know, and because we're running not enough people, and it's a lot of work to do actually.
And do you actually take in any volunteers, people who want to dedicate their time on a
At the present moment, we have a couple of volunteers, people who come in, you know, and do some work with us. Mark comes in and does some work with us. We have interns. In the first 6 months that we opened, we started getting requests for internship. It was like, hey, we just started, you know, and so we have had interns from UPSI, University Pendidikan Sultan Idris, UNIMAS, University Malaya Sarawak, with USM, Multimedia, KL University, and lately a university from Kedah, a polytechnic. So we do take interns come in, and we don't teach them music. They come in. We teach them to be observant. We try to build their confidence because they act as guides. We talk about what we do, and hopefully, you know, they will learn. We do teach music. Like, no, sorry, I say we do teach a bit of music to learn to how to identify and listen to music itself. So
I'm sure the act of even taking something that you found and archiving in itself, that process of cleaning to, you know, getting the recording itself, digitizing that recording itself, and, you know, archiving, that's a whole process also. So I'm sure there's a lot.
Yeah, it is not an easy thing, and I'm so glad that we have people who are passionate. You know, Kevin, who's helped do operations, and he's the one doing this thing, like, you know, telling me where to stand, what to sit, what to say, what to do. And Jocelyn, who's in charge of our resource center. Jocelyn was an intern that actually started from USM, and then eventually we forced her to come and work with us because, you know, she had nothing else better to do. Yeah, and then but she's very meticulous in what she does, and she's very passionate about it. So I'm very, very happy. And we've got Elaine, and we've also got Crystal that comes in and works with us, and Mark. And we have occasionally people that come in and wanting to do certain projects with us, and we'll work together with them, whatever it is. It's all for the good of the country.
So just to also take note for everyone here who's interested to get in touch with Paul, you can do so through the Penang House of Music Facebook. As he mentioned earlier, you know, collaboration is key for the love of music. So please do reach out. I'm going to move on to the next question that we have. I think you raised it briefly in the video, but just to kind of reiterate it again. Do you have plans to turn the book into a documentary, or if it's already been done, where can we watch it?
The book, just for the love of it.
Yes.
If we do a documentary, it will be like 200 series, man. You know? If you look at the
YouTube video series, maybe.
Yeah, it's a lot of work, you know, to do it. We're not able to, because the book is very different. If you read the book, you will realize why. You know, every part of it. It's like I call it a book that you can take it for leisure or anywhere, and then you can read just one chapter or just one page, and then you don't have to go back. It moves on. It's like a story by itself. However, yes, we do intend to do some research documentaries. You know, we'll pick a subject and then we work on it. Some like for example, we're looking at something like maybe Jimmy Boyle, because that man has done so much, you know. And the more we find out about him by reading about what he did, we get excited about it, because he was one man that would document. He would write on his reels and he would write on papers and things and all that, and he's kept all of them. So that alone is a journey, and we are starting to realize certain things now. I've looked at certain things of his maybe about 5 years ago, but then suddenly I come to this year and I realize, oh wow, he was already doing that, you know, and that would help on what we do. So we intend to look at doing a lot of documentaries. We did another one with Haslin from Sun when she was with Sunway University, and the Alley Cats one. We had a lot of fun doing that. It's a 3-part documentary, but that was the first one we did. So we got another 2 more to go.
Where can we watch the documentary?
It was actually, it premiered on Open Penang, which actually open festival that was organized about a few months back. So I think it's still on the Facebook. You can watch it. It's Alley Cats, the documentary, you know. Hingga Akhir Nanti. And it was very well done, you know. I had fun also working on that with Haslin. I think she had a very clear mind, and she's a good producer. Yeah.
Okay. Great.
Yeah.
Again, I think reading the book itself, like you mentioned earlier, it's, you know, there's so many cohesive parts that make the whole, you know, experience of reading through the book itself. Could you maybe share some interesting anecdotes, or, I mean, in the making of the book itself, I'm sure there were a lot of adventures.
Yes, you know, the book is actually by itself, we can write a book about doing the book. Behind the scenes. We had to interview a lot of people, and unfortunately, what we did was, when we interviewed, I never used video cameras at that time when we started. So it was more voice recorders, audio recorders. So we interviewed. And sadly, a few of them passed away after that, you know. But we were so glad to get something. Whether it's good, bad, or anything, we were glad that we managed to document some of it. And National Archives, it opens up a different thing for us. I was there for about 8 months, you know, trying to find out as much information I get and as I could. And there's a lot inside there. It's if you know what to look for. You know, if you go in and there's all the things here, you will go mad. You're just like, okay, I want to see this, I want to see that. But you have to focus and say, okay, I have to do this. So we would send somebody inside, and, you know, with specific instructions that for these newspapers that we won, and the period of time, 1961, 62, 63, and it was actually with Bizu. So she would go in and she would just, okay, page 3, title of the thing and all that, and then I would go and capture it. And we spend a lot of time. Once you collect the thing, and then you have to clean it up and go again, you know. So, and then we had, when the designing of the book came, oh, it was so much fun we had with Adrian Chia. You know, we would,
Beautifully done. Really
yeah,
beautifully done.
yeah, because there were so many things we want to put inside, and then James would say, no, 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 this one cannot, that one cannot. And then we say, okay, we put this, you know, and certain advertisements we want to put inside. And then he said, no, no, don't do that, man, you know, don't do that, you know. And no controversy. It was a book about feel good, about the nation that you felt good. This was what happened. It was a celebration of the music and the musicians of yesteryear. And that was what we put up in the end. We had to stop because we had so much information. It's already 200 over pages. If we didn't stop, it would have gone on to like 400 or 500 pages, and you want to put it in your bookshelf, cannot fit. It's like an encyclopedia, you know. So then we have this House of Music and Resource Center, like, it works out. So we dump everything here. Oh,
Okay.
yeah.
Any plans for a second edition now that you said that you have more and more?
Okay. I've spoken to a few people about possibility of doing a second edition because there are a lot of stories going out of the bands and the 70s and 80s and all that, you know, but you need to tell the right story, the proper story. You know, some people tell stories, but it's not in the proper context, or you don't have it enough. And I think it's very important to tell the proper story, tell the right story. I've spoken to a couple of people and said, okay, let's try and do something on the 70s. So we started collecting some photographs, some information. People don't know about Camp Semangat. You know, I think that's a beautiful story down there. And there were also a lot of concerts and shows being held in universities in the 60s and 70s. Music was prevalent. It was all over, you know, in the universities. You know, and
We had our own mini Woodstock, if I'm not mistaken, in Malaysia.
that's right, Camp Semangat. That's what it was.
Oh, that's what it's called, Camp
Yeah,
Semangat. Okay.
Camp Semangat. You know, that was 1972, 73, or maybe earlier. Joe Kid will know about it. He knows
Yeah.
most. Yeah, you know. And there were certain other things when the ban on long hair, you know, people had to cut hair. You couldn't, you know, you had to dress. You couldn't do this. You couldn't do that. So the story is actually very interesting, especially the 70s that came up. The dressing change. We had bell bottoms, man, at that time. You know, I remember wearing bell bottoms, and it was like, oh my god. And I had school shoes this high.
Platform.
Platform shoes. So everybody looks taller with the bell bottoms, and all the photos, we have a lot of the photos of that, you know, and it's like, wow, that was a cool time, you know. All the guys had long hair, longer than the girls, you know, and everybody, now you look back and they say, oh my God, what were we wearing? You know, and the time was actually a very colorful time, you know, it was a beautiful time. So yes, I would like to do a follow-up edition to include the 60s moving into the 70s and then 80s, but it would entail a lot of work. And if we could set the foundation of Penang House of Music, keep it smooth, let it flow properly, then I can pull away and maybe do something on the second edition of it, you know.
I'm sure it's still an adapting period now that, you know, you guys are just reopening, and I mean, it's a lot more different than the way things used to operate.
Yeah, but then that is not only the case, but it's getting the funds and the grants to carry on. You know, people don't see this as an important thing. So, and we've applied in many places and all that. So far, we have not been successful. Yes, the Penang State government funds us, but it's not enough. You know, we intend to start up a AV lab, audiovisual lab. We have already part of the equipment. That means we have record players that actually can digitize and vinyls. We also have a converter for cassettes, and then we have things to scanners and all that kind of stuff. But we need more money and to get other equipment. You know, we've got some film equipment, but it's not enough, and we need to employ experts that can come in and do. And the experts and the people, or the young people that come in and do, we have to tell them what we do, and we have to get them excited about what we're doing. You know, and when you get them excited, it's like, wow, you know, and then they get they spend a bit more time on doing certain things we want. And we always give them the freedom of trying new things. We're always open. Let's try this, let's try that. Yeah, sure, why not? It's good, For only when you fail that you learn. You fall down, you get up, you walk again. And we allow you to fail so that you will learn and don't make the same mistake. That's the thing.
I think I speak on behalf of I myself collect vinyl records. I also play sometimes, and I speak on pretty much a lot of DJs out there that there's an interesting revival for the past 5 to 7 years of a lot of young musicians just collecting records from the 50s, the 60s, the 70s, and they're playing this music now as we speak. So no hope is lost on that sense.
Yeah. But the thing is that, it's getting so expensive.
True.
The prices of this thing, a P. Rumley record now, it can cost anything between $50, $100 to maybe about $3,000.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it was a far cry from way back when people were just throwing all these records out.
It was $1.50, you could buy records, and then, my first record I bought was $10. I saved my money. It was Deep Purple live in Japan, made in Japan. It was called Made in Japan. I was like, wow, I saved my money to buy the record. And now I don't know where it is. I think my mom threw it away because it was too loud. Music.
But I think even back then, I mean, records archiving itself was such a big deal. Even if I recall, in Angkasa Puri, Radio Malaya at the time, there was field recordings done all over the country. I'm sure you are aware of that as well, where they were archiving sounds of cityscapes, nature, city by city.
Yeah, we have some of those records actually. The roti man with his bell ringing. So they sample the sounds and all that. Sound samplers. Some of it we've got. So it's quite interesting.
We have a next question from Az Samad. Do you want to turn on your mic, Az? Hello. Hi.
Hey, Az.
Hey, Uncle Paul.
Hey, good morning.
Good morning. I purposely woke up early so I can listen to you, Uncle Paul. It's really nice.
Okay, man. So I'm an inspiration for getting up early, is it?
Yeah. Next level. So yeah, thanks so much for the session. It's really nice to hear you talk about it after such a long time. I miss hearing you tell the stories. So I guess my question is, like, for the people watching now, after learning more about what you're doing and what your team's doing, like, what are probably the most useful things that we who are on this session, or maybe who watch the replay later, like, what can we do to help Penang House of Music or your team's ongoing work, so that, in our own way?
Okay, first, I don't want to sound like a broken record, but we need funding. So,
if
you know anybody who's got a lot of money, please tell them about us. Okay, that's one.
Okay.
That's the other thing is that, whatever people have that they don't think that they want anymore in terms of records or vinyls or what, we don't only keep Malaysian records, we also keep a lot of international records. The reason is because, a lot of the local musicians and the local performers were influenced by international artists. So if when you're doing research and you listen to this band, say for example the Alley Cats, for example, and who were they influenced by? Or they were influenced by Deep Purple, or they were influenced by Bach or Beethoven or something. And how do I get to listen to that? Hey, we got. So it's a reference point. It's not only that, we only keep Malaysian records. No, we keep everything and anything. We've got many other things. So people who have things that they think could relate to Penang House of Music, we would be interested. However, if a material itself, they say, we can't give it, we want to keep it, maybe a recording of it. A recording of the thing, digitize it, pass it to us. At least we have the sound. We are always worried that maybe disasters happen. Anything can happen. We have a story about a guy that when we were writing the book, he had all his photos of his band in the 1960s. So I said, can you please pass me the photos? I will scan the photos and I'll pass it back to you, because I know that the photos are personal items and it means a lot to you to have it, but to us, we just want to keep a copy of it. So what we did was we scanned all the things. And then about 2 or 3 years ago, suddenly he came running to us. And he says, hey, do you have my photos that you scanned? I say, yeah. He said, why? Because all his photos he kept in the house. Physically, there was a flood and everything was gone. So it could be water, it could be white ants, it could be a fire, anything could destroy. So then he came, I said, just give me your thumb drive and I'll give you all the photos. And he was so happy. His wife would get angry with him. Because there's one photo of him getting married with his wife, But if you don't document, you be prepared to lose it. Either it's faded or coffee stains that fall on a certain piece of paper or the photograph or a poster, and it's gone. Never mind. But I can find it. No, it's not that easy. After a while, everything will go. And then you want to tell a story with something that you want to show, it's not there. So whatever, if you don't pass it to us, maybe you could just scan a copy or scan some things, or maybe digitize the sound and pass it to us. So, and we will appreciate. One of the latest things that we got was from Albert Serimal. Albert Serimal passed me an exercise book. Exercise book, it's from 1930 something. It was a school exercise book done by a guy named Bill Dixon. And what he did was he used the exercise book, he put his name in front, and inside the exercise book were chords. He had drawn out all his chords, guitar chords, and then placed it and said, okay, this chord. But the chords were not just simple chords. It was not like your C chord, D minor chord. It was augmented 7 plus this, plus diminution, all that. And from 1930s, you're thinking to yourself, oh my God, this fellow was drawing out guitar chords on this exercise book. And it was all this kind of chords. Yeah, this is the book itself,
Wow.
Copy of the book, you see? And it's like, we have 13 folder. I can show you, he wrote all these chords inside.
Wow.
Yeah. Alternate D flat -7, and then alternate -7 chords. It's simple stuff. Drawings and you're thinking, that creates a story itself. Like what the hell is this? And why did he do it? Was he a musician? Was he because apparently the story we heard is that he was a soldier that was based in Penang at that time. And before the Second World War, he left. But he was with the British Army. So these are things that we have, things that maybe don't make any sense to other people, but to us, it's a treasure. And we will try to find out the story behind it. Maybe one day the guy will appear, or his ancestor descendants, not ancestor, will come, and his grandchild or somebody will say, oh, I know Bill Dixon was my great-grandfather.
I'm sure you have a lot of stories in the similar vein where people come and they have some sort of, recollection in that manner as well.
There are a lot of things, a lot of things. We can tell a story by just with a tray. I have a tray that, that has nothing to do with music, and I use it as an example to tell people how to identify things or look at it. I think, Kevin is getting the tray for me, and I'll just give a very, very short example of what I mean by being observant, and how to look at things, and why we think it's important, Okay, this tray itself, it sits in our kopitiam area. Okay, it's a tray of Harun bin Ali, a tea merchant. Okay, let me see. This one. Okay, can see not?
Can see.
Okay, so what for me was very interesting is that tea merchant. No, don't zoom in too much. Okay, tea is actually imported mainly by the Chinese. You got all these other teas and all that kind of stuff. So this fella, what he did, we found out, was actually he was applying to the teh tarik fellas, you know, and this was like, I think 1950s or whatever, you know. And what is also nice is that it's got a telegraphic address that says tea kettle, you know. And on top of that, he was bringing all these perfumes in, you know, and the names of it is like Sweet Malaya, Nagore Bouquet, Sahabat, and all that. Now, in those days, I understand that this kind of perfumes were actually, sometimes they use alcohol, but this type of perfumes did not have alcohol. So this man was ahead of his time and doing things already at that time, you know. So it was actually very interesting. So we tell people, look at the thing, identify, tell me the story. You know, some of them can, some of them like, oh, it's nice. I like the color. That's it. Or got flowers here, you know. But you know, so we ask you to open your eyes, open your mind, and look at it, and then you will see stories unfolding before you. Wow. And they always like me to tell stories, so I would tell stories.
Okay, thank you for your question.
Yeah, thanks, Uncle Paul.
Welcome. Bye.
Okay, we're nearing to the end of the session. Before we close up the session, do you have any final thoughts of, you know, you just want to share with our audience today, just to wrap up the class?
I would like to say that for musicians, you know, not only musicians, but anybody involved in the arts and culture, you know, I've said this before. Every dancer, every singer, every musician, every poet is a storyteller. Document your journey. Document your journey, because one day you might become famous, one out of maybe 100,000. And people will ask you where you started. And when you tell your story, it's like, wow, you know, that's a beautiful story to tell. So do not think that, you know, you will never make it big. You never know, you know. Be a storyteller. Even if as a singer, when you're singing on stage, you are a storyteller. So when you sing the song. Don't show me how good you are with acrobatics, you know, music acrobatics, you know, you sing the song, tell the story. Yeah, you know, Kevin is telling me to look at the camera. I keep looking at the screen and look at the camera. Okay, yeah.
I think it's a beautiful story to tell to end the class for today. Thank you so much, Paul, for giving us a virtual walkthrough of the history of how you set up the museum, the makings of the book. And we really, I think I speak on behalf of everybody today that we are truly appreciative of all your efforts, and you know, we'll do our level best to contribute and help in any way possible. So if anyone has any further questions, do contact Paul through the Penang House of Music Facebook page, and hopefully I'll see you soon. I can record in your recording studio soon, Paul.
Can. You datang lah. Datang lah.
Once again, thank you so much, everyone. And just a reminder, today, we are nearing the end of the Open Arts Classes series. We have today and tomorrow, which is our final days left. So do check out buskl.com.my for more sessions. And 2 p.m. today, we have a Mak Yong class with Adi Guru Zamzuria Zahari, and she will be talking about appreciating the art form of Mak Yong. So please do join us for that. Okay, so
can we play a final song, just a little bit of the song as you close?
Yeah, why not?
It's a young Razak Rahman with the RTM orchestra.
Oh, beautiful. Let's do it.
Okay, play it now lah, Kevin.
Okay, so I hope everyone had a good time today. We'll see you for our next sessions. Have a good weekend, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you. Goodbye.
Bye.